Morning, Mr. Paul.
Morning.
Oh, should I get my coffee?
I should get more water. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
That was not staged, by the way. We left at the same time and we came back at the same time.
A little late because I was Zoom. I hate that Zoom signs you out. Like, you can't be signed into two computers. Like, I'm not using the other Zoom account. It is 40 miles away. And then it's like waiting for the host to start the meeting. I'm like, I am the host. Oh, that's right. You're signed out again. Let me go find that password.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's making this stuff? And now they think they're going to take on Google with like, we're making essentially office apps. But like, you can get your calendaring and email through Zoom. Why would I ever want that?
Just what I need is more passwords and more usernames and more.
Yeah, you're not going to beat
two-factor
Google.
authentication. Yeah.
Anyhow, I think, well, maybe that's a good topic for the workshop. No, but here's the thought. Learning to say no to things that don't need to be done. Things that are not that are not on target, on plan. And so something like Zoom is ubiquitous for video calls.
Yep.
In fact, Google Meet is simpler to use, works with any old Gmail account on any device without downloading anything.
Yeah.
It is a superior video, a quick video call experience. Zoom, however, has the market. Microsoft has Microsoft Teams, which everybody hates. And they've got Microsoft Outlook and Office 365 and email and all that stuff, right? Which Zoom could never grab market share from that. That's insane to think about.
Yeah. Likewise,
Zoom's not going to grab market share for managing emails or calendaring from Google. It's not, so I feel like it must be like a mad scramble. We've got all these video customers. We need to convert them into this whole ecosystem before somebody overtakes our video business. Instead of just optimizing that video experience and reducing things that are an actual hassle, like signing me out of my Zoom account on my laptop, which I use all the time, simply because I happened to sign in last time on Zoom on my desktop. And now I can't even find now the irony is I have to go back to Google to grab my password so I can go back to Zoom and enter that password because it's saved on the web version for Google, the password saved in Google. And then I have to copy it out of there and put it back into my Zoom account so that Zoom is like, oh, great, you're the host. And now what's going to happen is when I go back to my desktop computer, I'm going to have to do the same thing there. Only I'm going to forget. And I'm going to try and start the meeting. And then it's going to be like waiting for the host to sign in, or you can sign in as the host. It's like, how dumb? How like
it feels more logistically complicated than purchasing an air ticket and flying from Phoenix to Chicago to do this in person.
Yeah.
With a video camera crew set up recording.
It's such a hassle for a simple, for something that is super uncomplicated. Google can make it super uncomplicated through Google Meet.
Yeah.
Only I run across people all the time who hit Google Meet and they're just like, what is this? And how do I do it?
I don't know how to do it. Yeah.
And I'm like, this is literally the simplest thing you've ever done is click this button and boom. I accept video. I accept audio. Done. You are video conferencing. Zoom, not simple.
No.
And so I feel like the Zoom and their extension of all of the features still has made certain basic things overly complicated while extending a bunch of things that at least me as a user, I would never consider Zoom a compelling platform for running my calendar or email. So That's my current pain point. Saying why scope as a programmer, we always talk about scope creep. Because as soon as you start building something, users say, "Hey, can you do this? Can you do that?
Yeah.
Can you do that?" And the first response must be, "No,
No.
we're not going to do that." Because as soon as you do that, all of a sudden it's like, and we want it to do all of these other things too, and it will never get released. And you can't compete in all of these areas.
No.
As a because there are tools that excel in individual areas.
Mm-hmm.
And Zapier came in at one point in time and allowed you to communicate between all of these tools.
Yeah.
Right. So it opened up all these APIs in an easy way. And it's not like the APIs weren't already there, but you had to be a programmer to figure them out. So Zapier came in and said, "Here, we're just going to automate, or I'll give a good user interface on the automation capabilities of all these individual platforms."
Yep.
Perfect tool. So you can have your specialized tools and then combine them all together. Or you can be Zoom and frustrate the living crap out of me countless numbers of times per year as I
Over a password.
look up my password to sign myself in because I can't get into my own meeting.
I have a friend who's a product owner at a large company. Everybody would recognize the name if I. And he says that's pretty much my job is to tell people no all day. That's all he does. But another friend of mine yesterday was telling me about he's getting into real estate investing, and this is probably the third or fourth opportunity that's come up where they've identified a property, they've looked at the numbers, and they've said, the margins look good on this. This looks like a good bet for what we want to do. They're going to, buy and rehab and sell at a profit type of thing. So it's flipping. And he said, so we said, okay, give us until tomorrow to, and by the time they came back saying we're ready to make an offer, somebody else had already swooped in. And the reason I'm thinking of this is because Zoom has a couple of things. Well, what it had going for it was that it struck gold at the right time in the form of COVID-19. That really took its social rating score and all that to an entirely different level because the entire world went on Zoom for about a year or two. But yeah, the reason I'm thinking of my friend who's doing real estate is I said to him when he told me that, I said, it sounds like you're competing against people who they may not even have as good of a grasp on whether or not the deal makes sense for them, but they may be able to execute quicker than you can because whatever you have in your process that's slowing you down, they've sewed that leak up, and they've said, I have an airtight system. As soon as I see a good deal and I'm ready to make a decision, I make the decision that instant. And then I say, put the papers in front of me and I'll sign them. And you'll get your money in a couple weeks.
That story, along with this idea of, and I know you might have your questions from last that we've been going through, but the story that you recall there reminds me of the importance of not following competitors, because I recall back in maybe early 2000s, maybe 2007, something like that. I ran a heating and air conditioning business. We were online selling residential and light commercial heating and air conditioning directly to consumers, and we're doing millions of dollars a year. I think maybe 10 million at one point. And when we would compete for ads, for visibility, I had a pretty sophisticated tracking system that would take the everything we knew about that customer, whether their computer, they went on their computer and then sent themselves a quote. Now I have your email address. I know all of the things you looked at. And then if you call us and you give us and now I know your telephone number.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I know your email address, now I know every session you've ever had, including your phone number and your email address. And then if you go back on a different computer, but you send yourself a quote, I now know that computer's information. I could track everything. So the importance of this was not to, spy on people. That's not the point. But the point of it was that I could attribute attribute orders to ads and therefore figure out the profitability of those ads.
Yes.
And then we knew at what price we could afford to compete for each click that came in to make a sale. And lots of times we would not be first or second or third even in the ads, because all of a sudden, somebody else, one of our competitors, a small heating and air conditioning company or something like that, would come in and they felt like, man, we got to buy that number one position. And I knew for a fact they were not making money. It was not possible to make money at that position given basic conversion rates. And certainly the conversions, that we were doing, which is pretty good. So we would compete lower. And then sometimes people would be like, hey, but we're not being seen first. It's like, yeah, I know. They don't know that they're not making money. Only their reporting is at least 30, 45, 60 days out of date. So they're paying for the ads now. They're hoping it converts to a sale. They close their month. They don't make money. They don't know it. They don't know it yet because they're not reporting on a day-to-day basis. And my system is reporting faster with better information to attribute the full life cycle of of all of those orders. And so I know that we can't compete for position one because that's not a money-making position. We're underwater on it. And they're underwater too. They just don't know it. And sure enough, you'd see them pop up and they'd be there for a while paying ungodly amounts of money per click. And then poof, gone. You'd never see them again. And my automated systems kept track of all that stuff. So it's, that reminds me that many times we see organizations, competitors doing something and their inclination is, I don't want to miss out. I need to go after that. When in fact, that might not be on mission and it might not be profitable.
Yeah.
So you got to know your mission and you got to know whether it's paying off. And if it's not, it doesn't matter what your competitors are doing. Maybe they figured out a way to make it profitable. But if you can't follow them. So that's my connection, all from LinkedIn, building tools that just seem to complicate my life.
Well, let's bring it a little closer to home, right? The discussion we recently had about trying out some of these pages that promote books to readers on Twitter or X. And I came across what I thought was an intriguing offer just to dip my toe in the water and see what the temperature felt like. And I did it. And you immediately, when we were conferring about that, you were able to take a look at the page and you could see what the analytics returned, and you could say, yeah, it's at least worth an experiment. And I could experiment for under $20, so I did. And did I see a surge in activity or interest? I don't know. The posts that they shared for us definitely got a lot of traffic. We did see an uptick in pre-sales for our newest author, but that's through Amazon, and so we really don't have access to Amazon's data to know whether or not that's happening. So now the question is, okay, well, what if I spend another $15 or $20 and then we get another slew of pre-orders? Okay, then I could say, we could attribute at least some of that to what I'm doing, even if we don't have Amazon's data. But by virtue of the fact that we can see that their data is showing engagement and interest, and I could look at the posts that they shared from us, and yeah, we did get a lot of eyeballs on it. I think over time, perhaps if we perhaps will reach a point where we can do more direct selling using our own links, and then we can begin to measure that and see, okay, this is a worthwhile thing to subscribe to. But I think a lot of people, like you were saying there, they just go out and pay the big subscription fees or the, enormous advertising budget, and they really don't know how to measure, either in advance or once they've pulled the trigger. They still don't know for sure. Like, how do we actually know whether this is working? It's okay if it's not working 100%, but if it's working less than 30%, maybe there's if it's working less than 10%, hardly worth it. And if it's not working at all, what on earth are we spending the money for? I was encouraged by the metrics that we saw this morning on the pre-sale of the book, but I still got to be cautious at this point. And I've reached the point in business where I understand, if there's no way to test this and measure it to see if it's a worthwhile investment, then it's on my not to do list, as Craig Ballantyne would say.
Yeah, that's the Craig Ballantyne's not to do list is important. I think as an organization grows and an organization figures out what works and what doesn't work, I think it is important to stay on mission, say no to things that are not on the mission. And it's not that, know and forget. I think, no, not right now. We're going to stick it over on the side. Review it, might come back.
Yeah.
Some of my great ideas that came together at the right time were collections of ideas tabled previously.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's true of all of us. I'm not unique in that way. And then be able to measure, like you talked about, measure the impact whenever you can. And you do bring up a good point. Also, this idea of experimentation. It's a really lightweight experiment to spend less than $20 and potentially get, tens of thousands of eyeballs on your message. That is a worthwhile experiment. Where else are you going to do that? And if it pays off, and I mean, this is a typical struggle for any company that does advertising. Soda companies do this all the time. They have test budgets and they just run all sorts of videos, or it's short ads or television commercials, that type of stuff, and they'll test market them. And if they see a pop in sales around that commercial, then they might expand that commercial. If they don't, they kill that commercial and they'll run a different one. And they're always rinsing and repeating the ones that work. And so you remember how we got the every winter we used to get the local Coca-Cola bears, running all their ads, right? It began as a test, and everybody loved the bears, and then all of a sudden, boom! Every Christmas you get the bears back because it worked, but it was a test. And you'll see if you go online on YouTube and search for commercials, you'll see gads and gads of commercials that you've never seen before, because it didn't work. Or it didn't work in your area. So test. So stay on mission. Apply a test budget. I think that's a great reminder there. And then measure and kill the things that don't work.
Yeah, and if you get results from something and you can't necessarily verify it, then don't assume that's where it came from. So we got a surge in pre-orders on this book in the last 30 days. Coincidentally, I did spend a little bit of test budget on advertising. Does that mean that's where it came from? I don't know, because we're running it through Amazon, right? Because we want Amazon to be a silent partner in helping to promote this book. And one of the ways you do that is by getting a whole bunch of pre-orders stacked up before the book's release date.
Well, if I can interject there for just a second, one of the ways to measure that for our viewers and listeners is when you run when there's reporting available from, let's say, this account, if it was run as an ad on X, which it wasn't in this case, I know that. If it was run on an ad on X, you can get the click-throughs.
You would get click-throughs.
That's true. So X will report it. And then in a situation like this, where it's leveraging somebody else's network and they're essentially retweeting it or publishing a tweet, right, on their platform, they have metrics on that particular tweet as well, if they would look into it. And there you can start to assess, and that's where even taking a snapshot. So what I would do is I'd take a snapshot in that one instance and say, okay, well, I ran this ad. What metrics can we get available from that, that organization? Will they give us that information? And so if we know a certain number of click-throughs went through, and then look at the sales over those couple of days and see if there was a bump, right? And then, like, to your point, can't make a whole lot of assumptions, but we can start to see a pattern, right? So then we say, well, there was a bump in sales. Did the bump make sense? Maybe. Now let's take it a step further. Let's do it again.
I bet I wouldn't be surprised, and this is showcasing my own ignorance or lack of thinking about it until somebody else says something, right? It wouldn't surprise me to be able to look within our own distribution partner and see if there was a bump in sales the day of, or just that the day after they ran that post for me. Then we could probably say there's a high probability that a lot of that came from running that post, and therefore maybe we should double down on that and try their next level package of 2 or 3 posts to see what we get from that. Because then we could easily say, oh yeah, now we're seeing the results of it. It's just it's coming through Amazon, but we can still say if it happens on the same date that that we place an order with them to share those posts.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's going.
And that's good. That's where the smaller organizations, or in this case, it's easier to ascertain that, because there's nothing else really going on from a advertising standpoint. So it's attribution in that one area is pretty straightforward. But then when you get more complicated, you got a lot more things going on. It's really important then to hold the analytics as close as possible, which could be here's how I would do this: run the links through a link tracker. So it's a link tracker of your own that then forwards that off. So instead of giving it just the Amazon link, run it through a link tracker to the Amazon link, so that now the link tracker holds the analytics of where the link came from. So that's called the referrer, right? And then we already know where the link goes to. And now, boom, you can get, in some cases, well, you'll certainly get tighter analytics because you stuck yourself right in the middle.
Yep.
The next step is, okay, well, what's happening like on the Amazon front end? And there are some reporting capabilities that, can be had. But it's, in this case, information is power. And some companies like Amazon, they're not going to give you all the information.
Sure.
But they're going to give you enough to keep you, for a person to make a decision to, run an ad or not run an ad. Or so, yeah.
What we're doing after we get off this call, I should say.
Yeah.
In the link tracker together. No, we got to check the data first. But that's the whole point, is like, because Jay, you always talk about pull through, and if you're just brand new to the workshop, pull through is the idea of wherever people are actively laying down their dollars and saying, we want what you offer. That's pull through. It's an example of it. It's not the only one, but it's an example of it. Wherever people are saying, we want what you're offering and we'll pay for it, that's pull through. And there's probably quite a few people who maintain a certain degree of and it's healthy to a certain degree of idealism in their business. They really want to do a specific thing because they get an abundance of joy out of it. Fine. I'm not saying you need to scrap that idea just because you're not getting pull through. But where you are getting pull through, milk it, because that can fund the other thing that you want to do. Versus if you just focus on the idealism, but nobody's buying it, then you spin your wheels and eventually you're going to burn out of energy. But it's going to be much harder to burn out of energy doing something that you know people are asking for and will pay you for. There's a strong degree of satisfaction in that. Even if it's not necessarily your favorite thing to do, but you're good at it, you can deliver it and people trust you and they'll buy from you. Those are that's very good feelings to have.
Yeah, I think as an organization matures, it's good to come up with a process for testing. Just a couple of questions to ask to determine whether a test is worth it. And like in this case, one of those tests was that, they said, well, it's going to be $17, $20, whatever, to run a tweet, which is priced because it sounds cheap. It could have been $5. It could have been 50. Who knows, right? It's $20. And everybody's like, oh, for $20, I'll do that.
Sure.
Like I had I helped a company get started not all that long ago, a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years. And the founder of the company got approached by a golf who this individual thought was a golf especially how much I golf, a golf course that you want to be in their program, or not program, but you want to be in their
be a member?
No, what's it called? The whole layout thing, the little booklet that you might get that nobody gets. Like if you golf at a place that you already golfed to, you never get the little layout of the book, that shows you the course and the distances and all type of stuff. Nobody keeps those.
The printout maps that you take with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the idea was, well, for like $400 or something like that, you can get into this, and they give you all these stats. Here's how many people come through this golf course, right? Now this new business owner's like, great, I got $400 and I need business, so I'm going to try it. Now, the dirty little secret here was that this was from a marketing company that the golf course didn't even order these books. The marketing company just sends them to the golf course whenever they arrive. So, we went there at one point in time looking for the ad. It's not in there. Oh, they didn't ship those books yet. Okay. Do you know when they're coming in? No, we never do. They just show up. We didn't ask them. They just do it for us, and they just show up. Okay, great. How many of these do you go through? Not many. Well, because all of the people who are regulars to this course, they know the course. They go there every week, sometimes multiple times a week. They're not picking up on those things. And there are not many visitors to this course. So $400 for this ad that, like, because X number of people go through this course, X number of people go through the course, but nobody picks up the book and nobody sees the ad, right? Yeah. It's same as saying, well, it's $20 for a tweet, but if 10 people see your tweets, $20, though it sounds cheap, is super, super, super expensive.
Yeah, $2 per impression.
But $20 for 10,000 people to see your tweet, now we're talking. Now it's cheap.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where I think one of those first things to gatekeep oneself on is, it sounds inexpensive. It sounds cheap. That doesn't matter. Don't look at the price. You got to go under the hood and see, how does that price, what am I getting for that price? What's my potential eyeballs in this case when we're talking about advertising? What are the potential eyeballs? And how do you estimate that? The typical eyeballs in the case of X. And then further on down the line, you have to take that test budget and then monitor it, right?
This is reminding me of the coffee news. You've seen that at like various, like you go to a retail place or a coffee shop, and right up by the cash register, they'll have a little plastic display and several copies of the coffee news in there. And I'm not attacking the coffee news, right? It's a legitimate business, and people do it. But I remember being approached by a guy trying to sell me ads in the coffee news. And um, I didn't say this to him, but I said to myself, why would I buy an ad in the coffee news? Like, I go to plenty of coffee shops and networking venues and all that, and they all have the coffee news. And the reason they have the coffee news is because a salesperson from the coffee news comes and says, hey, would you mind if we put this display here right by your register? And they say, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
They're not promoting it to their customers, and their customers aren't reading it.
Right.
Customers are looking at their phones or, maybe reading a book or, nobody's reading a newspaper anymore.
Yeah.
So the guy wanted to, it's cheap to put an ad in the coffee news. I'm thinking to myself, yeah, but nobody reads it.
Right.
So it's not even a bargain. It's not even a bargain at 1/10 the price.
Yeah. Well, there's a magazine in our area. I probably shouldn't use the name. That has been around for forever, and comes out quarterly, and it's this thick, and it's just news about stuff that's happening in the Midwest. Like, hey, this fall's the leaves are changing. Yeah, they do every year. And then there are featured articles in there, right, that are written by companies, and they pay for that space. And then it's loaded with ads, just ad, right? And we've had a client one point in time, they used to pay like, I don't know, $350 or something like that for this, quarter page or less ad, maybe 8th-page ad tucked away someplace in this monolithic thing. And you saw it everywhere, right? This, like the coffee news, right? It's everywhere. It's at restaurants. It's at this, right? You see it everywhere. Well, we told this guy, I was like, this doesn't even make sense. The whole thing is ads. Nobody's looking for you. You're looking for you, but nobody knows you're there. And nobody reads this to discover, how they're going to, who should do their windows.
Yeah.
Nobody. So, I said, you should decline them. So he did. And the salesperson was like, whoa. Did we say 350? We meant 50. And I was like, hold on. I said, I told you. And he said, well, I did it for $50. I was like, okay. He says, it's just $50. And I was like, it wasn't worth it for 350 because nobody reads this thing. $50 seems cheap. You're going to get no results from it. 0. So like the coffee news,
worth 50 cents.
It's not at all, but it seems cheap. Yeah. And that the whole racket is we just have to fill this thing to get the costs to help pay for the cost. And we don't want to, as soon as we lose you as an advertiser, we're never getting you back. Yeah. Right. Whereas if we can keep you at least in the fold for $50, listen, find 1,000 companies in your region that will all pay $50, stick it all into a magazine, print it as cheaply as you can, throw it everywhere, throw it on the ground, staple it to every telephone pole.
Yeah. That's exactly where people go to shop for information about products and services they want to buy as well. Let's look on the ground and see. Can you picture people?
Well, it's like real estate agents who put them on bus stops, right? They'll put their faces on bus stops.
Yeah.
Like little on the
or the grocery cart ads with the handle. Yeah. I'm not reading that ad. I'm putting the grocery cart.
It's all about visibility in that case, right? But like nobody who is, at least in my area, because public transportation is not like a normal. It's not like everybody takes public transportation, right? In inner cities, maybe, but in our area, people who are buying homes also not taking public transportation. So the fact that you can buy that bench for something that sounded cheap also is worthless. So
maybe if you're a DUI attorney or something, I don't know.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's exactly right. Anyhow,
I'm going to get myself in trouble here in a minute.
But it does go back to, I think it does go back to, there's all sorts of opportunities to be distracted.
Yeah.
To distract for $20 here, $50 there, get off mission. But it doesn't mean it shouldn't be tried. It just means it should be run through some sort of filter for somebody who has maybe done this before. And then be willing to say no. Be willing to say no to the things that if it's not worth $350, it might not be worth 50, might not be worth 50 cents, like to your point. And so tell that salesperson no. Break a heart today.
Yeah.
And
be a savage.
I was in a restaurant. I was in a grocery store the other day. And somewhere near the wine or whatever, I don't know, this person came up dressed, clearly not the grocery store person. And he's got a clipboard. And he's like, hey, we're running a special offer for Kroger customers today. And I was like, yeah. And now, as soon as you say that, like, I know this shtick. I'm 46.
Yep.
And I said, yeah, what's the offer? Well, we're talking to people about, your cell phone. I was like, nope. I stopped him right there. I was like, and I didn't mean to be so rude, but I was like, nope. And I said, no, I'm not changing cell phone providers. He's like, yeah, but you haven't even heard. I was like, I know, but I'm not going to happen. Not going to happen. It's just, so he says, you must already have AT&T. I said, nope. And I never will again. And I'm not going to do it now. And I walked
away.
And then, and the person I was with, was like, younger teenager. She's like, well, you were rude. And I was like, I don't mean to be rude, but like, no, the answer is no. And last thing I'm gonna do is sit here and talk to you about it.
I almost had a mirror of that exact interaction, except mine was in Target, not Kroger. Where they have the technology section, and they have a couple guys back there hawking. It was, I don't know if it was AT&T or Verizon or one of them, and they tried to flag me down, and I said no thanks. I didn't even let him I didn't even ask him what the offer was. I just like, no thanks. Oh, but you haven't even let us show you. I know. I said, I know I haven't, and I'm not going to.
See, I thought if he's near the wine, I was like, special offer, great. So like a special on wines. Are you from the wine distributor? And you're gonna, hey, we'd love to show you about Tuscan Valley Supreme. I'd be like, I don't know. If you got a special offer, I'll take it. But as soon as he's like, cell phone, nope.
Yeah.
Like Austin Powers, exhibit A.
www.com.org. Yeah, I feel sorry for those people in Costco that have to stand there and do that. They have to call out, hey, do you want to talk about DirecTV? No, I don't.
But it's just me too. And it's just you. Because I walked back a little bit later around that area, and somebody had stopped. This, older couple had stopped, and they're sitting there having a great conversation. And maybe the offer was fantastic. I don't know. But they would do it. They'd probably do it because it does work, but not necessarily.
Well, and all we're getting back to here, right? Like if that guy had said to you, we're having a special on the type of wine you're interested in, then you would have been having the conversation.
Absolutely.
Because at that moment, what was important to you, they were suddenly, putting a little bit of gasoline on the fire. Same way as how you and I came together, right? If I had approached you about writing a book a year earlier than when I did, you probably would have said no. You wouldn't have even answered me.
Right.
But I just popped onto the radar at the right time. And so, from a marketing perspective, that means you got to constantly be out there sprinkling seed and something will pop up out of the ground, right? But as an executive, as an owner, as an operator of your business, you have to be careful about what seeds fall out of the ground out of the sky, I should say, that you're actually going to respond to.
Yeah.
And if there's no way to respond to them on a low cost, low commitment, measurable basis by which you can objectively say and verify independently that this is beneficial to your business, then you need to be prepared to say no And not no forever, just like I don't have the time or the energy to devote to that, and I have no metrics for measuring that yet. That's an okay thing to say, I think. Like I just got a note back from a friend about our online author workshops, and I had sent him information, and he said, "Thanks for sending it over. My problem is I'm so preoccupied right now with this project that I'm working on that I have to delay it. So I am interested, but I know enough to know right now that I have no energy to devote to it." It's the same sort of thing, right? If you have that degree of planning and detail and data already in your head to say, I can't devote resources, I can't devote time, I can't devote energy towards this, then it's a no-brainer. It's like, thanks, just like me with the cell phone guys at Target. I have no energy, no time, and no interest, and I'm satisfied with who I have my phone, my telecom provider. So I already know the answer. That's why I'm not even entertaining it. I'm not going to waste a second of my time nor a second of yours. You got bigger fish to fry than me, right? Because it's settled science in my head. I pay attention to this stuff. I'm forced to. I'm a business owner. I can't sit there and just, or I'll run myself so ragged that I'll crash and burn. And I don't want to crash and burn.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's wrap this back into where we started. And then we'll have a couple more minutes. Where did we start? Saying no.
Saying no.
Know your mission, and then evaluate everything against that mission. Is it additive to the mission, or is it a distraction from the mission? Allow yourself a test. Allow yourself the space to test things. And it could be, hey, we're going to test this new line of whatever, or it could be, we're going to test this advertising, but then certainly measure, and be willing to say no to the things that are diluting instead of concentrating your effort, whether it be time, resources, or energy.
Mm-hmm. They have that saying, know before you go, right? Like my bride and I went out to a little candlelight concert the other night, which was lovely. And there were some details in there that I'm glad they sent me an email about it, because I wouldn't have thought to ask and I wouldn't have thought to look. And it was just, a warning that parking could be limited. That turned out not to be a problem, but it was good to know it before we got over there, because it's downtown Phoenix and we don't spend a lot of time there. We live in the suburbs, and so we don't know the lay of the land. And they also said, please be there a half an hour early, because out of respect for the musicians and their performance, we're going to be starting this thing on the dot, and if we don't let people come in late. And I'm like, okay, well, we weren't planning on being late, but it's good to know that it's better to be there 30 minutes ahead of time instead of, say, 3 minutes ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
So know before you go, right? That's become more common in our cultural lexicon. But I'm gonna take that one and say, know before you know, as in KNOW before you NO. And it goes back to what the example I was just giving, that we've been talking about with the supermarket, department store cell phone offers. The reason for you and I, it's such a quick no that the salespeople don't even get an opportunity to present it, is because of how confident we are in our existing numbers and allocations, shall we say, of our time, energy, and resources. Now, that doesn't mean that those guys in those roles shouldn't do what they're doing, because as soon as you pass by me and Jason, you're going to come across some other Joe Schmo who's fed up and disgusted with Verizon and wants to switch, is looking for an excuse to switch, right? So it must work, and it probably does. And both the salespeople should do what they're doing, And then business owners and individuals like us should do what we did, which is to know ahead of time before a salesperson even comes up. Do I have the bandwidth for this financially, time-wise, energy-wise, or do I not? If I'm happy with the way things are going and it's working for me, is this the time and place to stop in the middle of my day and hear another boring sales presentation about something I'm not really in the market for? No, it's not. And out of professional courtesy for other salespeople, because I'm a marketer and a salesperson, I have to be as a business owner. I hate seeing people waste their time. I hate seeing salespeople burn a bunch of their energy on someone who is never going to buy from them. I'm that empathetic. Because I've been in that role. I've wasted hours and hours and hours of time, and gobs of energy, and in some cases tens of thousands of dollars from people who were never going to buy from me. So don't do it. Don't be that guy who wastes a professional's time. Just say no.
Those are good points. Those are good points for sure. And I think that's certainly relevant to aspiring and current entrepreneurs, founders, executives. All right. Well, we got a couple minutes left. Paul, what did you come to the workshop for today?
I find the process of talking things through, when going back to the whole post on Twitter thing, it had that, there was a time in my business where that would have been just me, and I would have said yes a lot sooner, because $17, big whoop, right? I would have been like the guy you were talking about with the ads there, that he paid $3.50 and then they dropped it to 50, and it still wasn't worth it, even if it was dropped to 50 cents. But I wouldn't have known. I just said, well, I guess I'll just do it, and we'll see if we get any orders out of it. And because I was able to hop on the phone with you real quick and say, I saw this. I don't know if maybe this is a scam, first of all, and I need to be open to that. And you looked at it and you're like, well, I don't think it's a scam, but let's see if it's worth it. Let's dig into the numbers. And then you started to, read off the analytics to me, and I'm like, oh, okay. I was looking at the wrong thing, and I was jumping too far ahead of myself. So it's a good thing I called you, because you could look more intelligently at the data and either confirm or, disassemble whatever assumptions I was making. And that's, I guess, as a shameless self-plug for the Thinker Growth community, that's the sort of intelligent, measured, near as you can get to objectivity that we want to offer to people. That we want to say, look, there's a lot of decisions you can make very quickly by yourself. Doesn't mean you should. In fact, most of the time, what you probably should do, if you're the owner, the CEO, the leader, the founder of your company, is you should try to slow yourself down, because it is so easy to make dumb decisions in isolation. But if you build a community around you of people who can ask intelligent questions and intercept you from self-sabotaging yourself unwittingly most of the time, you'll go a lot further together than you will alone. And my encouragement to you would be to continue participating in the community. And if you've got an idea that you believe is going to change the world, you have a responsibility to become really good at communicating that idea. And that's going to happen for you in concert with other people weighing in on that. It's very rare that those kind of things come out of one person and one person only. So you should take a closer look at some of the accelerator programs and offers that we have here in the community, to give yourself as much leverage as you can and as much of a running start as you can get before you hit the wall.
Yeah, you're a big believer in the process of a mastermind. I know you've been part of masterminds for years and you found them to be very beneficial.
They have stopped me from making a lot of dumb decisions. And that you can't discount that as a part of what has kept me afloat and kept me pursuing after my goal, even at times where I was like, this isn't worth it anymore. I've just created too many problems for myself. I should just go back and get a job. And they've said, no, you learn from this or else it isn't worth it.
Yeah. So real briefly, what's the framework of mastermind and how does that play out?
Well, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. I think the one that has worked for me has been a model of transparency, authenticity, and vulnerability. And being in a community of like-minded advisors who serve as your personal board of directors, who basically you grant to them in exchange for the reciprocity, right? You do the same thing for them. You grant to them insight and visibility, as well as the authority to ask and inquire and to know all the stuff that you would normally say, I'm not going to share this with people. To me, that's not a very big deal, but to some people it is. Some people feel really uncomfortable doing that, and that's okay. You just need to know that when you close off other perspectives and put the horse blinders on what you're saying, thinking, feeling, or doing, you're asking for trouble, no matter how competent or strong you are personally. And so what I've found is that even though I have come a long way in 5 years and become very, very, very clear on what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and who I'm supposed to be doing it with, and where it's going, and all of that, I still open up every detail of my life to these guys in my group, and I say, "What do you think about this? And what about what I've written here is not clear, or lacks a why, or doesn't explain things, or makes you tilt your head to the side and go, what's up with it?" And they've always got something, right? They've always got something that I haven't thought of. They've always got an angle. One of them challenged me yesterday. They said, you should do more date nights with your bride. And I said, well, we do them. We don't do them habitually, like every week. It's a set time. And I said, part of the reason is that's neither of us are really, we're not that type who needs to go out once a week and go to dinner or something like that. And one of them sitting there said, yeah, I know that. That's fine. But remember, you got 2 boys living under your roof who are watching what you're doing. And you want them to emulate your example with the women they marry. And I said, that's right. I can't argue with that. That's right. I want them to see that. I want them to know this is how you treat a lady. So, it's just all these different vantage points and vectors, if you will, of your life that, frankly, we're mostly blind to because they're on autopilot, but they can actually come back to haunt us. And those other caring, sincere eyes looking at it will spot them for you.
Yeah. Well, I have been the recipient of good advice from advisors at critical times in my life, just like you, and an ongoing facilitation of what you talk about, allowing other people to have insights and a voice. I think is really important. Well, this is the workshop from Thinker. And you mentioned it earlier. If you got a product, service, or message you think is going to change the world, you got to get good at sharing that message, which involves a lot of things. Which, to that point, I think final word on all of this stuff is enjoy the journey. It's okay to not have it all figured out. The joy is in the working it out. And if you if you can come to that realization, joy is in the working it out, then the growth in your own existence, your life, your business, your relationships, when you look back a year, 5 years, 10 years from now, you will be remarkably different. You won't see it from a day-to-day on a day-to-day basis necessarily, but you will see it over years, and so will others. And so if you feel that weight of responsibility, then get about doing that. Any final words you have, Paul?
Just circling back to our original point, you mentioned that it involves a lot of things, the process. And I would say as much as it involves it, I don't know if this is even a word, it disinvolves even more. Meaning there's so many more things you got to say no to than you got to say yes to. And knowing the difference, or better yet, knowing when the difference applies, right? So there's stuff that you got to say no to today, but 2 years from now, you got to say yes to it. So that's way easier to do with more than one brain working on the same problem.
Yeah. All right, man. Thanks for joining us today. To our viewers and listeners, you can catch us on Tuesdays at 10 o'clock Central Time for the workshop. We'll see you next time.
See you next week.